I cut the mouth on him. My excuse was I was only about 4 or 5 pegs away from the M6 motorway, which was really loud, so I had to make myself heard. Right, so this is mine and Scott's second attempt at qualifying for the Canal Pairs final. This one's at Middlewich on the Trent Mersey Canal. Now I've drawn A section and Scott's in B. When we got to the venue on the morning for the draw, there was a problem with A section, as in somebody had left the gate open and let it drain, so there was no water down at parts of the A section, so they had to re-peg it in areas, and I'm actually in one of the areas that was re-pegged. I've never seen this bit of canal before. It's up by a place called the Salt Line, for those that know the area. You park on the Salt Line car park and walk up the road, past some houses and then onto the canal up through a gate. It's right out in the sticks, other than the motorway's right by it. Now, they did tell us on the morning you'll need to do some gardening on your pegs when you get there, because they haven't been touched for a long time. And I wasn't joking either. I spent nearly an hour clearing the inside bank. Lucky I got my shears in my van with me. I've spent nearly an hour cleaning the bank to just get to the water, but then once I got to the water, I was underneath a tree as well, which later in the match was a godsend because they ended up being a good shelter from the sun. But all the branches were hanging over me. So I got my box in position and stood on it and pulled some of the branches down. I pulled a lot of the branches down, to be fair, just to be able to fish the peg properly without having to worry about getting rigs tangled up in there. And I think I made a good job of it, to be fair. But anyway, I've drawn peg A8, which was 2 pegs up from a little, I don't know, walkover bridge. And the next peg to me, they told me it was a flyer, which was A7. It's a cattle drink with lots of cover in the water as well. It looked nice, it looked really nice. But this peg looks really nice as well. It's reed lined everywhere. There's a nice cutout on the far bank where I can get in, and I thought I'll catch some fish there. But I started off by feeding squat and pinky lines just to the left of that cutout, which was around 3.5 feet deep, so it's quite deep. And I put 5 balls of ground bait there. I used, because I was told it's a roach and dace area, not many perch and hardly any skimmers. I thought, right, I used black roach and black with a bit of river mixed in, just for the bind in the river. Like I say, it's deep water. There's a few boats on the canal, so I wanted the balls to stay as intact as I could for as long as I could, or stay in the peg for as long as they could. And after that boat went through, I pulled a ball of bread down the middle. I wasn't sure it would work, but just lately, bread seems to be doing a lot more damage this time of year than it ever has done before. I'm not sure whether it's because of lockdown and all that, and the canals have changed since then. They're a lot clearer than they used to be, which lends itself to bread fishing. So the plan was, start on the bread, go on to the squat and pinky, and then I fed 2 cast lines, one left, one right, and then a hemp line right in front of me. And we'll just see how we go. Oh, I also fed an inside line as well, because I've been told that they could catch some fish on the inside. So I put a ball in just in case. So like I say, I started on the bread, start on a 4mm punch, and a couple of runs through, not an indication or anything like that. So well, I'll give it another run through. And the first bite I had was off a, there you go, there's the first bite, and it's a decent fish, which was very surprising. Could it be a skimmer, I was thinking. It ended up being a great big roach. 7 or 8 ounce jobby. I showed him to my other camera there. And the trouble is, I can't find the footage to it. So the first 20-30 minutes of this video is only the rear camera. The footage from the other camera comes into play then. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I've wiped it by accident or what. We'll never know. But I think the camera angle on this one's quite good for now. I managed to get the camera fitted to a tree branch behind me. Looking back, I could have done with a bit more trimming around the camera, but never mind. I'm still fully exposed. Right, so I spent the first perhaps nearly half hour down the track, which was probably about 10 minutes too long, if I'm telling the truth. But the fish I was catching down were a good stamp, so it was worth sitting and waiting for. Now over the top of the bread I've fed some casters as well, thinking that maybe once the bread dies off I'll catch some caster fish there. And I've already established that there are some stamp fish there, so you never know. It was a red hot day. I mean red hot. Proper hot day. And I was thankful that that tree was close by to me, because although I was going to be hot early doors, I knew at some point that sun would move round and I'd be in the shade the rest of the match. Another decent stamp fish. Another good roach. All the pegs along this stretch, there were 12 pegs up this area. There was 6 pegs to the left of the bridge, which was a quite open area with just one bush halfway along it. This side of it, it all got features like what I've got here. Reed beds all the way along. The cattle drink to my left, obviously, and then all the pegs to my right, going up towards the motorway bridge, were reed lined. Simon Priest was on the end peg by the motorway. As you go under the motorway, the lock is just the other side of the motorway, and I walked down to him on the morning because I had to go on the scrange for some squats. Because as soon as I sat on my box and got a rig out, I thought, I've left my squats in the fridge. I just knew it. I've just checked in my bag to make sure, and I definitely had left them. So I had to go on the scrange and get some squats. Now I've always mixed my squats. I go 50-50 reds and whites, I always have done. And then I can switch between whichever one I think's working the best on the hook. Now the lads have scrounged some squats off. They only ever take white squats. It's not a problem. But it's not something I'm used to. I'm used to having a bit of red and a bit of white so as I can mix and match. But today I'm limited to just whites. Not a problem, because I'm good white squats, to be fair. But hopefully I'll be catching on the pinky over the top of them anyway. Especially if the stamper fish are anywhere near like what I'm catching down the track. And it was a great start. A lovely stamp fish these are. I didn't think it'd last too long though, because there was a few boats about. And I did have visions of it being killed as soon as the first boat went over the top of it. But fingers crossed it didn't. There was a lot of movement on the canal as well, left and right, obviously due to boat traffic. Plus we wasn't far away from a lock, so every time that opened, the canal shot one way or the other. missed a bite on the bread there. So I'm going to try the caster over the top of it and see if that goes under. It's pulling to the right again now, the canal is. As you can see with the debris on the top moving. Now that was sitting in there for 4 or 5 minutes before I had a bite. Again, another decent fish. But sadly, this was the last fish I caught down the track. All day that was. Never had another fish out down the track the rest of the day. Never mind. At least I can say I've had a caster fish down there. Right, so the next move was to go and try a fluoro pinky over the top of where I've been feeding the ground bait and squats. It's not very wide here, it's only like 9.5, 10 metres wide to where I was fishing, which was just shy of the reed bed. Another half a section got it tight in, so they were probably about 10 metres wide max to where I was fishing. Like I say, it was quite deep, it's 3 to 3.5 feet deep there. It was quite uniform, the bottom as well, so it never really shallowed up as it got to the reeds. And I just carried on catching a good stamp of fish as well. These were dace, these are. Lovely stamped dace. Not so many roach early on the pinky. It was mostly dace, but I'm not going to complain about them when they're this stamp. I'm using a 0.3 rig there with a bulk of number 9s and two number 11 droppers. Down to an 08 hook length with a size 22 N10. Lovely fishing. Good stamp fish as well. I mean, look at that. Just about swingable on freeze elastic. Just greasing my tip up slightly there with a bit of Vaseline. I'm loving this. The fishing's great. The stamp of the fish is lovely as well. Nearly knocked my camera over then. Look at these for stamp fish. Absolutely beautiful. Like I say, most of these, 99% of them were dace early on. Just the odd roach mixed in. And the roach tends to be smaller. And just kept feeding squats over the top every run through. Every time I drop the rig in, I put a pouch of squats in as well. I'm feeding casters over to the reed bed to my left there, which is like 13 metres away. And I've done the same to my right, but it's a bit shorter. It's 11 metres to my right. There's another stamp fish. Beautiful. And then obviously I said I've fed hemp into that cutback. And I couldn't wait to try them, to be honest. But I'm not going to come off these while on this stamp. Real weight builders. I just wondered how long it would last. Lovely. Great stamp of fish. The rig I used on this line was a 0.75 Preston Kerry, and that was tied to a 012 main line. I got an 09 fluorocarbon hook length with a size 20 natural N10 hook. This was a bagging rig, this is. I've got another rig set up in a 0.3 with an 08 hook length and a size 22 N10. But it didn't warrant using while I'm catching like this. And I'm sitting here thinking I'm going to have my alright weight today, the way this is going. The fishing was phenomenal, to be fair. Like I said, I think I stayed on the bread a bit too long. I don't know. Maybe it just gave this line more time to get established and get more fish in the peg. But great fishing. Some of the fish I just wasn't able to swing on threes elastic. As you can see, the canal's moving again, so there's obviously a boat coming through somewhere. When I said I managed to scrounge some squat, I managed to scrounge a pint of squats off Dave Trafford and Simon Priest. And I'm already sitting there thinking, I hope I don't run out, because I'm giving them a bit of bait. There's a lot of fish in the area and I'm obviously eating it. And I'm getting through squats at a bit of a pace at the minute. Still feeding that track line, hoping that something will turn up there again. And like I said, I fed an inside line as well. That was with actually cast as an emp early on, because I had been told you could catch some of these dace on the inside. And this is just great fishing. Absolutely fantastic fishing. Keeping mover lines fed. Occasionally you catch a tiny little fish. Most of them are little tiny gudgeon with the odd little tiny roach. At that point I felt I'd give this line a rest and go and have a look on the caster. So out to the 13 metre side first on the left, and trying to poke that rig as close to the reeds as I can get it. And although there was odd fish there wasn't many. Every now and then I'd drop on there and have one or two. And some of them were quite small. I've had some big gudgeon on the caster as well. It's another rig that needs a bit of grease on it. Just dipping the tip in the top of the pot. Just gives it that little bit more buoyancy. Pop another caster on. I'm using a size 18 N10 on this rig. Proper versatile hook it is. Again, it's towing, so I'm trying to guide it along the reed bed. Catch another little fish. Not really what I want to be catching on the caster, to be fair. It's another gudgeon. But a bite's a bite. Here we go, he's in a boat. To be fair, most of the boats were quite sensible. They came down the middle of the canal. It's a reasonable pace, so it shouldn't really affect the overlines, especially with it being as deep as it is. But you never know. Like I say, I've never fished this canal before. I don't know how it will react. Or this part of the canal before. I don't know how it will react. It's a bit difficult trying to keep it tight to them reeds when the flow's as hard as it is. So I'll drop it on my right hand line. Let's have a look there. Just a bit too much movement in it at the moment. So back on the pinky. And hopefully a few more of them dace have regrouped. Just making sure I keep them squats going in. Came through at a bit of pace, he did. Skidded behind me as well. When the lock opened, it felt like a river at times. The pace was going that hard. It didn't bother the fish, look. Happy days. I can't remember using my landing net as often on a canal match. Flowing the other way again now, look. Another boat coming through. Looking around the anglers around me, I'm doing all right. I'm not sure if I'm doing as well as Simon on the end because he's netting a lot of fish as well. But I seem to be doing quite well in my immediate area. I've got Tommy Fairhurst to my right. And I think he started down the track on the worm. I'm not 100% sure about that, but he never caught hardly anything early. He got off his box and switched his approach a bit, and I think he's just fishing a caster match now. And he's catching the odd fish, and they all seem to be netters. We'll see how long that lasts. My chap to my left got off to a blistering pace down the track like me. He probably caught more than me early on, but he doesn't seem to be catching a lot now. Another decent stamp fish. Another dace. Beautiful fishing. Again, I held him up to the camera, look, and I ain't got the footage to show you. Typical. When the dace weren't present, you could still get bites, but like I say, a lot of them were off. Little tiny roach or little tiny gudgeon. Time for a top up, so I'm going to give her another ball with some squats in. And see if I can get them dace back in the peg. Straight back on it. And it brought them back. Happy days. Look at the stamp of these, they're bloody lovely. Real weight building fish. keeping that amp line fed. Still can't wait to go and have a look on that. Just too big to swing, that one. Another dace. Beautiful fishing. I don't know what this was, but whatever it was, I hooked it and it swam straight into that reed bed and did me. I haven't got a clue what that could have been. I was told that there was the odd chub around here. Well, somebody caught a chub a few years ago. Maybe it was one of them, I don't know, but whatever it was, it swam straight into that reed bed and left my rig in there. So I had to pull for a break. So new hook length required. Like I said, I'm fishing an 09 fluorocarbon to a size 20 natural N10. I'll never know what that fish was, but I'm guessing it was probably a chub, the way it swam. It just hooked in, it swam straight for that reed bed. There was no way I was going to stop it on this gear. Especially with threes elastic. But hooking one fish didn't warrant me gearing up. It could have jeopardised the other fish I was catching. And these are the bread and butter fish. Look at that, it's a lovely fish again. And there's the motorway, as you can see. It's a proper noisy day. Couldn't talk to anybody around you because they just couldn't hear you and you couldn't hear them. Fluoro pinky was the best bait. As you can see, I'm starting to get shaded by that tree as well now, which was great, because like I said, it was a blistering hot day. Still the odd fish worth catching. Lovely. Try my right hand caster line now. And although it wasn't prolific, the caster lines off the reed beds, there were still odd fish to be caught, and they were a decent stamp, most of them. This one's at least 3 ounce, I would say. A dace again. And while I'm on these lines, it's giving my squat line a rest. I still haven't been over on the emp yet. I have a nice stamp roach on the caster. For the caster line off the front of the reed beds, I used an F1 fine in a 4x12. There's still the odd gudgeon being caught on it as well. Back on the pinky. There seemed to be a few fish there every time I left it alone, but the stamp did decrease. But the stamp got smaller as the day went on, so I spent more time moving around the lines to just keep fish coming. It seemed every time you left the line, you managed to go on it and catch a fish or two. So I'm coming from both ends here, look. Right, it's time to give the hemp a look. Couldn't wait to get on this, but I left it as long as I could. This is a 4x12 Chianti on this rod. And I'm using a size 20 natural M40 hook. And I'm using a single 4 elastic through a top 2. I expected this to bury straight away, but it never budged, which I was quite surprised with. Never had a single indication on the emp. I thought I'd have a right run on it, to be honest. So back on the squat and pinky again. Now the fish have gone really small at times on this line. I'm catching tiny little roach and tiny little gudgeon. Feels like the peg's on its way out. But we'll keep plodding on and keep trying. Real little fish now. So eventually that cut out. I decided to start feeding castor over there, and first bite was off a gudgeon, which was bigger than the squat fish, so I thought I'll carry on with this for a bit and see if it improves. So I stopped feeding hemp there and started feeding casters. And with hindsight, I wish I'd have done this earlier because it got good. It was by no means solid, but it seemed after that initial run of gudgeon, every roach I caught over there was between 4 and 5 ounce. I couldn't catch them on hemp, but they were willing to have the caster. Like I said, with hindsight, I should have been feeding that. I should have been feeding caster there earlier. Again, I'm using single 4 elastics here. Original slip. And this is actually my hemp rig with that size 20 N40 on. And the stamp of the fish was pretty good. Kept those casters going on the inside all day, and every time I tried it I never had a single indication of a caster fish. It was a bit awkward shipping once you hooked a fish. There's a little bit of weed sticking out on that side of the cutback, and it was making presentation a little awkward. And there was definitely some fish there to be caught. Like I say, I mean, look at that lovely stamp roach. Cracking fish. Because of that little bit of weed that was sticking out, I thought I'd get my cutter out, fix it to my cupping kit and try and clear it out a little bit so I can make full use of that cutout. Again, hindsight, I should have done this before the match. But with clearing all the bank off as well, I just never got round to it, I suppose. That'll do it. That's given me a nice clear run now. One of Lee Murphy's cutters that was. Brilliant bit of kit. You can find him on Facebook somewhere. I'll leave that line alone a bit now. I've just been messing about over there. Give it a chance to settle back down. And go back on the squat for a bit. Seems that all the dace have gone from that line now and all I'm catching is tiny little fish. Little tiny gudgeon and roach. I did have one stickleback during the match. Still the odd better fish there though. Then back to tiny fish. Never mind, something's going in the net. Try the caster again. Beautiful dace fishing.
What you've got?
Left that line alone for a bit and then back. Catching odd roach here and there, and that's all a decent stamp. Everyone on a caster, single caster.
You are? More women there.
I obviously didn't get all that weed out. I got him. I commotion that fish on the surface there, spooked him a little bit, so I came off it and back on the squat for a bit, just to give it a rest. Back to catching tiny fish again now. Back over in the cutout. Almost all of them are net fish as well. Couldn't catch these on the end, but I'm having the caster. And right towards the end of the match, put another section on so as I could push right up to the back of that cutout to get me those few extra bites. It made it even more awkward with the shipping, so I was having to strike, ship back, get a section off, and then complete the rest of it. But it was worth it. Another decent roach. What a Boston dace fishing. multitasking there. Thoroughly enjoyable day's fishing. Loads of dace and roach. Roach and dace bonanza. Absolutely loved it. Doesn't get much better than this. Coming up to the end of the match now. And that's it, that's the end of the match. I never had time to repair this rig. I got it stuck after that boat and had to pull for a break. And that was the end of that. Broke the hook length. Loudmouth again. See the reed it's stuck on, look. Great day's fishing. I got drawn with the scales as well, so I had to go and weigh all the section in. Up to me, the other side of the bridge, there was a £9.14 Lewis breeze on the hemp peg. Cracking net of hemp fish, although I couldn't catch on the hemp. I've caught on casters. But he's had 9.14, a lovely roach net. Some big roach in there was. And my 80 odd fish ended up going £9 and 4 drams to get me third in the big section, in the whole of A section, and I was actually third in the match as well. Great day's fishing. Really enjoyable day's fishing. Scott won his 5 peg section with £3.5 in B section. But that put him 10th in his big section, which meant we ended up on 13 points. Five pairs went through, we finished 6th. So, fastest losers. Never mind. Great day's fishing. We both enjoyed ourselves. And we'll go again. Now, if you enjoyed watching that video and you'd like to see more like this, give the video a thumbs up and please subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
Some good fish as well. 2 carp the other side of the rock. Yeah, I had a nice one. What's it got?